Hello again, KCIW listeners, and welcome to Curry Café. I'm Rick McNamer, producer and volunteer, and every Sunday, your host of Curry Café, Ray Gary, puts together a panel of guests to discuss topics of interest in our community. You listeners can also participate via our text line at 541-661-4098. Again, that's 541-661-4098. Now here's Ray to tell us about today's show.
Well, as Rick said, I guess he didn't say, but anyway, I do search the community every week to find the very best people I can to talk about the subject we have. And today I have gathered up two rather outspoken women who are going to talk about Women's History Month. And they're going to explain to me why women's history is any different than anybody else's history.
Oh.
Yes. So go around the room here and identify yourself and plug any books you have on Amazon or anything like that.
Well, this is Shirley Hyatt, and I think this is a wonderful topic that shouldn't just be limited to once a year. Moving on.
And my name is Billie Hopkins Furuichi, and I still have a podcast on KCIW. I don't have a regular show anymore, but my podcast is quite a fantastical story that has some interesting women in it, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Women are strong.
Women are strong, and I think we should do this show more than once a year about women, don't you? Yeah.
Well,
why not?
You can propose it, you know.
Yeah, we can. Who do we propose it to?
Rick
or
me, or
Shirley, I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Well, if you and Shirley are here every week, we can do it every week.
Yeah, but we don't want to deprive other voices from being on the air.
most of them are not very good, so you might as well.
Well, that's not true. There are many good voices on this radio station.
Yeah. I can remember when I was a kid learning that there was such a thing as women's history. I don't know how old I was when my mother told me that women didn't have the right to vote until the 1920s. Mm-hmm. And this was in the 1950s. I say 30 years, and then to learn that women couldn't own property and that they were, in fact, property, and just all the crazy things. How do we get so stupid?
Yeah, well.
Was this a worldwide thing, by the way?
Worldwide, that women couldn't vote?
Was it like that in England and Spain?
Oh, yeah.
It was.
I think it's been that way since.
But did America lead the way in opening up the vote to the women, or did that start in England?
It did start out someplace else. I think it did start in England.
I think maybe, Rick, didn't you have a story about a woman in England who...
Oh, well, yeah, and doing the vast research that we always do, I was amazed at how many, went back, how many women I have never heard of, and maybe a lot of us are in the same boat, but one in particular was, let me think, look here, Mary Wollstonecraft, born 1759, died in 1797. But anyway, she published a book called The Vindication of the Rights of Woman, published in 1792, and an English writer who championed education and liberation for women. So that's a ways back, and it's sometimes it's kind of funny and weird that we still are fighting that at times in today's world.
Well, I think one of the reasons that we have so much trouble is that people perceive that women want to be equal with men in every way, and that's just ridiculous because we are two separate sexes. I mean, let's not go down that road too far, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
It's like we have our own qualities. You don't know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Let's not go down that road.
Yeah, we aren't equal. Of course not, yeah.
I'm sure, but now we've got people interested in contacting us. So send us a text at 541-661-4098. Operators are standing by.
The operator has a text.
Wow.
All right.
I hope you guys discuss reparations for women.
Ooh.
Oh.
Now, that's not something that I have any knowledge of. Are there women out there
fighting
for this cause?
I had
Well,
wonder-
this Curry Cafe listener thinks that's a good idea.
Oh,
They
my
certainly
goodness.
have been put down and held back for a long
Well,
time.
and their pay still isn't truly equal.
The pay is very much lower than the men's pay, average salary
Okay,
for women. Yeah.
Now, the job that I had was a union job, and even if it wasn't the particular job, I was a state trooper in Alaska, and women troopers got paid the same as men troopers,
No kidding.
exactly the same. Certain raises at certain times and that type. But I realized there are jobs, I don't know, computer programmers, things like that, where
Teachers.
teachers. Oh, really?
Teachers, yeah.
Men teachers paid more than women.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
Well,
didn't
that
know
started way back when the man was the so-called breadwinner. And when women got into the workforce, they said, well, you're not the one bringing home the salary for the family. So you don't get paid as much because the man deserves more because he's the breadwinner.
He's gotta make
And
the
so
car
that was
payments.
the logic behind that. And it's very difficult to say to somebody, no, you're in the same job as the man held, but you're not going to get paid as much because you're not the primary breadwinner. That's not based on anything besides what would you call it?
Well, sexism,
Yeah, there you go.
misogynistic approach to all life. My sister was married to a guy in Georgia. They got married in '63, I think, and it was the decorum, the norm in Georgia that the women don't have their names on the checkbook. She did not have her own checkbook until way past the time that they moved into California. So reparations, it would be very interesting to see.
But that meant he had to learn how to balance the checkbook and pay the bills?
No, I think she did all that.
Oh, she did? Oh,
She
okay,
did
just-
all that. But
Probably wasn't responsible for poor investments or anything like that, too.
she couldn't have been because she wasn't on the checkbook. Yeah.
That argument, though, you were saying, Shirley, pretty specious because I think there were a lot of, well, I'm sure we all agree it was a specious argument, but they would say the same thing to a woman whose husband had left her and she's running her family on her own. They were going to use that, say, oh, well, your husband is the breadwinner and you don't have a husband, well, we're still not going to pay you the same amount. I think that happened a lot.
Do you think
and might
that-
still be happening.
I was just going to say, do we know that that is still the norm or is it a rarity in this day and age?
It's
I don't know.
yeah.
That they're
well,
not paid the same?
Do you think that's still going on?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
It's
Yeah.
probably better, I'm guessing, but it's still not equal. That's the
Is that what the caller had in mind? Is what I'm
Reparations.
wondering.
Well, if we were to give
Who's going to pay the reparations?
If we were
To who?
to give reparations to women, we'd have to go back until the very beginning of when they started earning money and calculate how much each generation in each family should be paid back for the amount. Oh my gosh.
And who's going to?
We'd wipe out the government.
Well, we just have Elon Musk. We'll put him right on that and
Yeah, maybe-
figure out where the money's
maybe
going
the muskrats
This
can
is what we can
Yeah,
do with
not to
all that
worry.
money we're saving by firing 8,000 people
There
for
you
the
go.
VA.
Give
and
it all back to the women.
All right, I'll vote
Well,
for that.
Just to turn the conversation a little bit, I went through and looked up some women that I've never even heard of them, so what do I know? But, for example, women who have left a mark on society in some way, shape, or form. And in that, I learned that Bessie Coleman, for example, was an African-American woman, the first one to earn a pilot's license, and that was back in 1927.
Wow.
And I also learned that a 63-year-old Annie Edison Taylor went over the Niagara Falls in a barrel and survived. So that is her claim to fame. So
But not very. I wouldn't want that as my claim to fame.
yeah, but these are
Like I
women
shot myself
who,
in the head and survived.
whose names became part of the fabric of society somehow for various reasons, and that one was she survived going over. But anyway, I thought that was kind of fun, a fun little fact. But a lot of the people that we recognize, like Marie Curie, who did something profound that really shook the rafters of the whole world, not just one little part of society.
Or Louisa May Alcott. Mhm.
Yeah, people who really, Clara Barton, Red Cross. etc., etc. Cleopatra, not to be left out, last pharaoh of Egypt. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I wanted to bring up because she was such a strong advocate for women's rights and gender equality. And we don't have a woman like that on the court now. I mean, we do have one gal that whose name escapes me right now, but she is speaking up, and when the rest of them are not, about what's going on politically right now, which a lot of it has to do with trying to put women back in the box and put them in the attic again, where they won't make any noise.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court, and Amy Coney Barrett is in the just doing a reverse, I think.
She's on the opposite side,
There's
although
another
she
woman,
has,
isn't there?
Huh?
There's another woman.
Oh, there's, yeah.
oh
now,
yeah, there
I
are.
think
And
of her
boy,
name.
is my brain stopping. on that.
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yes.
Yes.
Tanji Brown
Yeah.
Jackson. She's the one that is the more liberal.
And there's another one too.
Sotomayor.
There you
So,
go.
yeah,
Yeah.
when
They're both the more liberal ones on
when she was being confirmed, I thought it was interesting. One of the people asked her if she knew where she was last Christmas. Now, I don't know. I don't understand the reason for that. Maybe he was just trying to point out that she was Jewish, like you didn't know that already.
Oh,
And she came back and she says, "Well, I don't specifically remember, but like most Jewish people, I was probably in a Chinese restaurant."
Was that Elena
That's a-
Kagan?
Huh?
Elena
That was
Kagan?
Sotomayor, wasn't it?
No. I think Elena Kagan is the,
Yeah,
Jewish.
was that the? That's a great answer.
and that's
Yes.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
good
perfect.
comeback. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I saw we were talking earlier about I've got news for you.
Yeah.
And they had this particular night. They had a black. There's two teams, and each one had a black person on it. It's not always like that, but it did. And they were talking about whether or not somebody was Jewish or whether or not it was important. And this one woman says, "Well, I don't know. I just don't see Jewish."
yeah.
Well, that's like I don't see color, or I don't see. Yeah. I thought that was a very clever remark. Evidently, I was the only one that got it among the
Well-
group here.
But I guess if you want to go back in history, there have always been somebody waving a flag against somebody else. We seem to be set up to try to find an adversary situation. Somehow we can keep fighting something. We can't seem to want to come to peace about anything really. Just keep the embers going and
Well, that's kind of a good thing, and to some extent, if you're on the side that's causing or the recipient of the change, it's good. Right now, for most of us, it ain't so good, but that could change.
it's interesting that that remark about us always having to be in some sort of a conflict or a battle to. It may be something that's deep in our social psyche. I'm not sure. But one of the reasons that this book attracted my attention when I went to the library to find out about some women in history, this book is based on history from
Give the
diary. It's called Liar, Temptress, Soldier, and Spy, 4 women in the Civil War who changed the war's direction. Each one of these women, some were on the South, in the side of the Confederates, others were on the side of the Union. And they were so dyed in the wool about and so rabid about their own convictions that they became spies, they became lovers of the men, the soldiers, one on the other side, one on this side, one on that side, and then they developed ciphers to get letters from one soldier to another soldier and got soldiers out of jail. And one woman had a secret room in her mansion. She was a very wealthy woman in Virginia. And she had a secret room, and she had her slave girl, no, not a slave girl, I'm sorry, her maid, her maid was placed as a spy in the home of Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederate soldiers. And she went to the wife of Jefferson Davis, and she said, "Now I have this this little girl who will clean for you because I know you're pregnant and you need some help. And, well, this little girl isn't too smart and she's not too swift, but she does clean very well. And I would like to lend her to you so she can help clean your house. Well, this little black girl was actually, she had a photographic memory. So she would go up to the President Davis's office and clean it up and look at all the papers and memorize absolutely everything that was on his desk. And then she had one of these memories where she could recall every single conversation that went on. So she took all of this information back to her the lady that was her boss, so to speak, Elizabeth. I can't remember her last name. I'll have to find it. Anyway, the name of this book, if you want to go to the library, is awesome, and it's all true. Liar, Temptress, Soldier, and Spy.
Today she would just have to get sucked into the YouTube or the chat. Yeah, somehow or other.
Chat room.
We don't know how, but
we have different way of communicating now, don't we?
Well, I think. Well, we were talking before the show too. We all kind of looked back in history, and it was amazing the people, the ladies, the women that we didn't know about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or the things in society. Remember how you looked at the want ads, and there was women's jobs and men's jobs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Jobs for women, jobs for men.
It used to be like that. It's not like that anymore.
And I can remember the first time I saw a woman driving a big truck or a bulldozer or something like that. Neither of those things require any great strength, so there's no reason they couldn't do it.
Technical skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and working for the railroad, and I started in 1979, and track maintenance mostly. If you've seen people out there on the railroads with hammers and picks and shovels, well, we started hiring ladies, women, if you will, back in, I want to say, the mid-'80s.
You're talking about in an office situation.
No. I'm talking about out there on the railroad tracks, digging in a railroad track.
Okay. Doing the manual, so-called manual labor.
No. Yeah, but a lot of that stuff was done with machinery, but there was still some physical labor. And, yeah, they started to filter in, if you will, and some had a hard time, but some got right through it. And it's pretty common now out there in that field.
Well, I was in a job where I was kind of in the very early stages of hiring women for equal jobs as men. I was a state trooper, and I think when in my academy there was 2 women, and I think they were like number 3 and number 4. Unfortunately, it was a big push on affirmative action in those days, and we did hire women and minorities who were patently not qualified at all. But the ones that were qualified and made it did an excellent job. It was always the well, they can't fight with in my career I was in 2 fights, and I stupidly caused both of them. I did. I should have used my words, so to speak. And I had a partner for a long time who was just unbelievable at calming things down. She was a pretty woman, kind of tall, very soft-spoken, and people kind of like what's her name did with Jason, the rapper that was arrested for having all these women.
Oh my goodness!
That anyway, one I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not in my purview.
Well, she's the woman on the morning news, and she's interviewing this guy, and he's getting mad and stomping around and acting like he's going to beat her up. And she's sitting there very calmly. Now, John, you need to sit down and calm. She's famous for that one interview.
Oh wow, missed that one. Sorry.
But women were, they were just like everybody else. They either worked or they didn't work. Unfortunately, like I said, affirmative action, we just hired a lot. Not a lot, because it wasn't a big department, but we hired people who were just not any good.
But the point you're making to me, Ray, is that somehow laws have to be enacted. Things have to happen in a legal way before people have the common sense to see how stupid it is to deny people with creative abilities and talents because of their sex. I mean, it's silly, but it has come down to everything having to be legal somehow. It's only legal, and as you pointed out, Billie, it's evidently still going on that women are under
not
the
getting-
thumb of their husband, and the more the people in government press for more of a Christian outlook on how things should be run, the more they promote the idea that the man is the leader and the woman is subservient.
And not only that, the very idea that people have a concept that affirmative action hires people who are not qualified, it really gets under my craw, because that is not necessarily true
Not
of all
necessarily.
hires.
Not necessarily. I mean, this is what Trump is doing now. What's his that's basically affirmative action. He wants to do it. But there were not a lot of women who wanted to be cops, and the Alaska State Troopers had a very different thing, because we had the thing, one riot, one trooper, and we would sometimes fly out to a village 100 miles from anything and quell something, and women didn't necessarily want to do that job.
But there's a stereotype that comes along with that mentality that women might not be qualified, but they're just they're so good at calming men down. It's like that's another stereotype that I really take offense to. It's not necessarily true. Women don't always calm people down.
No, because at the same time
I don't.
there was
I don't.
there was a woman that I work with. Actually, the three of us, or several of us, were friends. But this one woman had to show how tough she was, and she very often caused problems. Started screaming and cursing at people, just to show she was as tough as anybody.
And you can say that of men too.
I'm not putting it on the whole group. I'm saying there were people like that, and we had men wash out as well as women who washed out.
People feeling that they have to prove themselves all the time. I mean, that's...
Gee, I know quite a few politicians who have that proclivity.
And it's too bad to me, or to all of us, the affirmative action, the DEI, those came about because of necessary prejudices and well, you can go back to stereotypes, and now they've turned them into bad words. I can't pejoratives, if you will.
Pejoratives.
But they were necessary and I think they're still necessary because of just what we're talking about. The pay's still not 100% equal in a lot of places. And before I forget, if this conversation is stimulating you to text in, we have a number.
You have a text?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're behind
let's hear
on
from our text.
We are behind on text.
Okay, here we go.
Linda texted to say, I have to disagree with one of your statements. I heard one of you say that women have been paid less than men, even as teachers. I was a teacher in California in the 1970s, and all the teachers in our district were on the same pay scale, whether a man or a woman. We had...
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
As some states are different.
Women weren't allowed.
Different.
Texter says women weren't allowed to apply for credit cards or loans in their own name until 1974.
I think each state pays their teachers differently too. I was in Colorado, not California, so it's hard to say. Now here, I also taught here. My pay was based on experience and degrees, and not whether I was a woman or a man. So that changes too.
DOE, yeah.
Well, I want to go someplace that maybe other people don't want to go, so you can tell me not to talk about this if you want to. But I think that women, to some degree, have shot themselves in the foot by demanding to be part of the workforce. In that, now we have a problem with, and it shouldn't be a problem, but it is a problem with women having to have somebody else care for their children while they're at work. Well, now we could go back and say, well, Daddy always went to work and Mommy stayed home with the kids. Well, it worked out well. Mommy can still go to work, but if she's going to have children, should she be the caretaker? Should the parents be the caretakers of their children to a large degree? And my answer is yes, while they're small. I think a lot of the problems, and people might not like what I have to say, a lot of the problems are because we don't have solid family situations. And that is kind of a Republican talking point, and I'm not a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of why do we raise children in the first place? Why do we bring them into the world and then say, well, I'll go to work after a month and let somebody else take care of my children because I really need the money. And now one of our largest problems, evidently, is that there aren't people that are willing to do childcare, and they want a lot of money to do it. And so people have to work harder to find somebody else to take. I mean, it seems like it's a circle that shouldn't be. I'd like to see that broken. I would like to see women say, you know what? I'm going to have my children with me, and I can go out and have a part-time job until they're old enough.
I understand.
But
what you're saying.
it's like a month after they're born, and they go back to work, and somebody else. I just don't.
I
What if
understand.
you're a professional person?
Sure.
You're a doctor or a lawyer or somebody who's put a great deal of effort into becoming what they are, but they also want to have children. So if you're a doctor, say in private practice, you have your own practice, and you want to have children, and you're going to close your practice for a year or?
Well, if you can afford childcare, and by the way, childcare, you can't just leave your children with some lady down the street like
No.
you used to be able to. You have to have degrees, you have to have training, you have to have licenses, you have to pay a lot of money to become.
And now it's a profession.
It's
And
a
so it
profession to
just-
be a childcare provider, and it costs a lot of money. So if you've got money and you would like to keep your doctorate and your professional position, go ahead and put them in childcare if you can afford it. I have a friend who is in the camp of being with her child and being the teacher of her child for all the way through high school, and she is absolutely dead set on that path. And I'm sure she's going to do a fine job because she's an educated woman and she can do it. But she won't be able to have children come into her home to take care of unless she pays big money to have the licenses.
But I guess I think that it's selfish to say I can't give full time or maybe a half time, whatever, for just a few years, for just a handful of years. You can still have your creative life. You can still have your work life.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the social problems, and I sound like my mother saying these things, but I think that we are abandoning our children to the nourishment of understanding who they are in a family situation. And
Not
I
everyone, but I
really think
understand.
socially that is, we've shot ourselves in the foot.
Maybe society will gradually change to that being the norm and being accepted and actually work. Now, I don't know much about kibbutzes, but isn't that a thing where, like, the children belong to the kibbutz and all the
In
is it,
Israel?
a village to raise a family kind of
In
thing?
Israel. Yeah, I think that's the whole point. One of the
we're
points.
breaking away a little bit from the history month, but that's okay because this
Well,
subject is.
this is history. This
Okay,
is this
okay.
is the
And-
women's movement.
But before I go on too far, I want to get that text number out again, 541-661-4098. And I believe we're behind on text, so Mr. Mike.
We are a little bit behind. The person who wrote in, I hope you discuss reparations for women, followed up shortly after that with it's from the UK, Oxfam.com. But the economic injustice is not just racial, it is deeply gendered. For women and girls, the impact of colonial history is compounded by intersecting forms of discrimination. Every reparations initiative must incorporate a gendered analysis, acknowledging that colonial and economic exploitation has had distinct and lasting effects on women. This includes recognizing the historical oppression of women and addressing the persistent inequities they face now. Reparations should provide targeted resources to narrow the gender wealth gap. That means investments in women's education, healthcare, land rights, and economic empowerment. On a previous show, I sent a comment that was questioned, so I sent a follow-up text which was ignored. Please don't ignore my second text today show that internationally the issue is being addressed in creative ways. You don't
Good.
want to frustrate your listeners. Signed, Nasty Woman.
Oh my goodness, I love nasty women.
Nasty woman.
Nasty woman. Nasty woman.
I
was
want to
talking-
know where the money comes from.
That's
Nasty.
well,
and what
maybe
administration
reparations
is-
and other than money. I don't know what that would be.
Well, what that nasty woman is pointing out, though, the point is very well taken. But you need to have a governmental structure that's intact to be able to put forth all of those programs. And I'm hoping we will still have that.
And
Here.
I just want to say something quick before it goes away. I'm sorry that you sent a text that was ignored. It was unintentional that it was ignored.
Yeah, and there are times when the texts get lost if we go on.
Yeah, they go into these chats talking about
Well, I want to
bombing.
slightly amend what I've been saying, but I do think that it comes down to choice. It really does come down to choice to say a woman has as many choices available to her as she chooses to explore as a man does, because we don't say to a man, you can't do this and you can't do that. But we do say it to women, you can't do this and you can't do that. So women are always fighting for more ability to do certain things. And if we were really truly equal, there would not be those fights going on to demand that we have equality in every way.
Equality is not the same as equity. Wait, women can have equality, but absolutely not equity. What if they don't have the means to be able to? You're saying that they can do whatever they want. They should be able to do whatever they choose. They should be able to get as far as they can want to get in society. What if they don't have the means to be able to do that? It's totally inequitable.
Well, so you're saying a man has certain means that she doesn't have? What's the difference?
Well, certain men don't have any means either. I mean, there's a whole income disparity in the country. You can't possibly expect someone who is on the bottom tier and receiving food stamps and on a HUD voucher to be able to do what they want to do in this life. It's
No, not if your whole existence is
Well, you're looking
putting food on the table. Yeah.
We had a child tax credit that literally decreased children's poverty in this nation by a ridiculous amount
and it was
for a couple of years, and now we've gone
and what
away from
happened
it.
to it. Yeah,
Exactly. So every time we find a solution that works, we just
we cut it out of the system. Yeah.
Well, is this an appropriate time for me to say that there are certain people that say that's a mommy state, and now we've got a daddy state? So now we've got strong man at the helm instead of weak mommy at the helm. We want to take care of everyone. I'm being devil's advocate
yeah,
here.
I know you are.
But we want to take care of every single one of your needs through some sort of governmental program, and it's what certain people are fighting against now. We can't answer every single need that you have. You have to get out there and work for yourself. But at the same time, in the same breath, don't put roadblocks in my way. So people who live in small rural towns certainly might aspire to having a job on Wall Street in New York. How would they get there?
How would they get there? If you don't have, how can you pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't have any boots?
Well, yeah, it's a really complex subject, and we started out by saying throughout history, woman has been looked on as lesser and somehow even as evil. She's the bad guy in the scenario.
Oh, yeah.
Let's blame our issues on her.
Take a bite out of this apple.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah, and that was the beginning of the whole thing.
Yeah.
After that,
Yeah.
women had to suffer pain throughout their life, and men had to get a job.
But there are a lot
snakes
of religions that are older than Christianity that still.
Before I forget, can I?
that's right.
I just need to interject one thing here. Nasty woman, is that what you called it?
Mm-hmm.
We have openings. If you want to come on the show, we would
yeah,
absolutely
come
love
on.
to have
Yeah,
somebody that has
absolutely.
opinions.
Yeah.
Just kciw.org and
Brookings, Oregon.
yes.
Yeah,
And,
you'd have.
please come join us. And
Yes.
I will admit that the nasty woman was talking about me being the ignorer, because I remember a couple times I just lost the text. So sorry.
Yeah, we
Stuff happens.
Well, I'm
Rick
just
is
delighted to
an
know there's
affirmative
somebody
action
out there
hire here,
listening.
so
Me too.
Right.
And
we'll have to allow for him to make a mistake now.
I wish we had a real call-in.
We need the
line.
money for it. That's the
okay.
problem. It's very expensive to have the 7-second or 8-second delay.
Okay.
And I want to go back to Shirley. You were talking about, and again, yeah, it's a little off the women's history, but it is part. You're talking about the ideal way, I guess, to raise children. You know, the father working, the mother at home caring. That would be wonderful if it happened. And there are probably still homes that do it. They're probably rarer now. The economy just doesn't allow that right now, I don't think, for most families.
Well, but
have to have two incomes in order to
Almost
get.
have to have two
yeah,
incomes.
but
And I-
that's because women got into the work.
yeah, but
No,
are
that's
we blaming
ancient. That's
women?
ancient.
Michael's telling me no, that's not true.
Well-
okay.
the economic realities that came from women getting back into are the same manipulated economic realities that have driven all the money up to the 1%. It's just different excuses for different people.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear me.
Well, I don't think any of us will be able to solve the problems that we have in this society. But I do think that we need to honor the women in history who have made differences to help forward us.
Well, and to be encouraged, to know that we
encouraged,
can make a
that we
difference
can-
if we hang in there. And certainly today, everything is so different with the kind of communication that we have, and people can fly to another country and stand up there and make a speech and then come home, you know. And so it's a completely different world than the one that
Yeah, certainly.
early on that I grew up in.
Right.
And I would like to see people just kind of get back to the basics, you know. We live in a community, and that community starts out with family. And I have absolutely nothing against single parents. I'm one myself. But I think that we do have a responsibility to look at our actions and to say, who are these people that we're bringing into the world, and what are we offering to them, and what's the best way to do that?
Yeah.
And I do think that if people are strong within themselves, if they know who they are, if they're encouraged to use their intellect, and aren't just harnessed into some thought about this is what we do here. It's the people who open their minds to new ways of doing things, or expanding it to say, hey, you want to do that? Go ahead and do it. What's in your way?
Well, that presupposes that they're allowed to be educated. I think there's an effort afoot to dumb down
of course.
the next generation, and to not allow them to become educated, not allow them to learn about history, the true history. And you couldn't possibly expect somebody in certain societies to say, oh, I would like to have my children learn about Black history. They would say, oh, my gosh, that's just too woke for me. We don't want our children to learn about Black
And you'll
history.
make the white kids feel bad.
It makes the white kids feel bad. Oh, yeah, I know. I know. It's really,
Those are some fake groans, I believe.
but really, it does presuppose that we allow our up and coming generations to be educated, and I don't think there's any desire to have our up and coming generations be educated. Quite to the contrary, I'm afraid.
Well, I go back
I don't know
to
if that's true.
I
a
think-
phrase
I
that
think
you
it's
have to be taught how to hate, and if you buy into the idea that somebody is your enemy automatically when you look at them, to say, well, that person looks a certain way, therefore they're not like me, therefore they are my enemy. It's giving lip service all the time to how we're looking for peace. No, we're not. We're looking for ways to hate each other.
Yeah.
And it really is just mind-boggling, because it's schizophrenic. You know, give me this message and then counteract it by giving me the other other message. Women can do anything men can do. No, they can't. You know, it's really fascinating, and I really think that we have made progress. We have made progress, but it's a little bit fragile right now, and I wonder how it's going to turn out. I'm glad that I'm not in a situation to be bringing little kids into the world right now. I think this is going to be a rough road for a while.
It's going to be, for sure. Yeah.
We shall see what happens.
Well, and along that those lines, I don't believe Trump has even much talked about Women's History Month.
Oh,
this
he
month?
wouldn't. No, he wouldn't.
Well,
why would that be a topic
And then
of
I
his
was looking
conversation?
into his administration, himself. He did say something about how he was a champion of women at one time,
He
which
does have
almost
a lot of women in the cabinet.
gagged me. But
And we know he's an
also-
honest, truthful person.
What's that?
When he says something, he means it. He's an honest,
Well,
truthful person.
yeah, we all know how far that goes. But again, he's been convicted of 34. I'm sorry, those felonies. No,
Yeah.
alleged sexual assaults.
Yeah.
There's 18, I believe, women are in that general
And he
territory, and also members of his. Well, he didn't get Matt Gaetz didn't get approved. Thank heavens.
Thank heavens.
He was a sexual assaulter. Hegseth, RFK Jr., Elon Musk,
Oh, please.
Linda McMahon, and husband all have these sexual assault cases. Have they been proven? I guess not yet, but it's like where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah,
he was recorded bragging about him sexually assaulting women, and he could do it because he was a star.
So that's on that point, Shirley, you were talking, or we were all talking, with this group, women's rights, if you will, are not going to go too far.
You know,
Well,
especially like with Linda McMahon and her husband. Her husband was convicted, by the way, I think.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Linda McMahon was, I mean, all of that wrestling, the wrestling worldwide. I can't remember the name of it.
Whatever it is,
but it's all such a show. But it's the kind of a show that Trump loves to be a part of, and so this is the kind of a show that he's bringing into our politics, into our government. He wants it to be a show that is violent and oppositional. He absolutely loves it.
He's talked about he's going to change the type of shows that we see at the Kennedy Center, which will very soon be
right. It'll be
very soon be the
worldwide
Trump Center. We
wrestling.
know
It'll
that.
be
That's
wrestling.
But maybe that's what he'll have right there on the stage. We could have world champion wrestling.
Yeah, we certainly could.
Well, and we still have a little bit of time, but before I want to bring up just a couple of women that were part of women's history, very important, and kind of along what Shirley, you were talking about and we were talking about in the good old days when the woman could stay home pretty much and help raise the kids. Eleanor Roosevelt,
Just going to mention.
I thought, was looking at her history, if you will. She was kind of one of the, not really the first ones, but she pretty much championed going around visiting I call them the common people, seeing the problems and the issues. She kind of changed the way a first lady was looked at, I believe.
right, yeah.
And she was pretty powerful and outspoken.
It's
And
always the woman behind the man.
well, there you go. And she certainly was one.
And Franklin grew up in an extremely guarded or pampered world where he didn't know that people lived in tenements and lived the way they did
I believe that is correct.
at all.
Yeah.
He was a mama's boy. He wore a dress till he was about 16 or some damn thing. I don't know, but very much a mama's boy. They would like drive the limo through some poor neighborhoods, but he wasn't even looking out the window, and it wasn't something that computed. And Eleanor took him to places like that and showed him that we need to do something about that. Mm-hmm. She was also his legs when it went going out and inspecting things and looking for things to worry about.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the problem right now is that the people who are the wealthiest are the least able to understand the common, pardon the expression, the ordinary Joe on the street, so to speak, because it's very hard to understand. They just don't get it. Why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps?
Yeah.
Why don't you get out there and get a job?
Yeah.
Why should I pay you? Look at you. You don't dress right, I mean, it's really, really interesting that that we have at this point in time so many very, very wealthy people who are calling all the shots.
It's the autocracy. It's
Yeah.
the oligarchy. Well, I mean, we are in an oligarchy now.
Well, I hope we get out of it.
Yeah, it's
I'm counting on women.
well,
Yeah,
let's count on
yeah.
women. Yes.
If you just
that's
stand
a
up,
good
you're most
idea.
of the people in the world. If you just stand up,
Yeah,
you won't
yeah.
be able to say no.
But a lot of people are standing up.
Yeah, there
So
are.
I'm
There,
happy to see that.
We have some good women in Congress right now, and as much as as strident as she is, AOC is very well spoken. And when she did the tour around the speaking tour with Bernie Sanders, I watched it, and they were on fire.
Yeah,
I mean,
both
they
of them
were
are great.
really on fire. Yeah,
And boy, what a good team of the very old guard, Bernie
Bernie, Bernie, and
AOC. And strident, we need stridency.
We do. And Jasmine Crockett is another one that I just love the way
And
that
she's
woman.
got humor, and
Yeah,
I
she's
think
got-
that's one of the good things about her is she isn't strident. She sees it and she calls it.
And she's an attorney. She's a lawyer. Yeah.
Well,
But we have
it's
to
the law.
all hail Trump.
I do.
Everybody has to hail Trump.
Well, I do. But the women who are not hailing Trump are the ones that we have to count on right now.
We have to count on all the people who. I don't remember what show. Maybe it was Bill Maher last night said nobody in Trump's orbit will correct him, and that's how he winds up giving speeches talking about transgender mice and stuff like that. He
Oh yeah, he doesn't
just got it
understand
completely
anything.
wrong. I always used to think, doesn't he have people who kind of review what he says? Evidently not. So
Not
Bill Maher
anymore.
says nobody in his orbit will correct him.
How did they let him get away with it? I mean, I'm astonished.
So
Yeah, I don't
what Bill said that what he says, what Trump says is gospel, and nobody will correct him. And he was saying that, someday he may come walking out onto the stage with his fly open, and nobody will tell him his fly was open, but the next day everybody would have their fly open.
Can I count on that?
Well, see, that's the difference between men and women. I don't think we would be that stupid.
Well, I didn't want to turn this into Trump bashing, but
Yeah.
politically, we do have to look at how people can get power and keep power despite the facts. It's sort of like it's mind blowing, but I think that we are living in an age also where communication is so strong that people can see. The thing that worries me is the AI, the opportunity for people to just put your picture into a scene where you never were there, and somehow that's going to become the truth. And that again, we're paying so much attention to trying to make things electronically so much more interesting and superior, and not taking care of the real needs. And I think that's the dichotomy.
like
People
Trump
still-
says, everything's computer.
Yeah, but we still need to have food. We still need to. Who's going to take care of bringing in all of the crops, the harvest, if we don't have any people to work in the fields? I mean, it's just
Or the
it's so simple.
slaughterhouses,
It's
yeah.
so simple.
Well, we can, like they do in Florida, we can change the child labor laws.
Oh, that's
They've
exactly
kicked out
right.
so many, or potentially would be kicking out so many migrants that we need to fill those jobs. now. So
Get the 11-year-olds out
we'll have
there
a-
in the field. Yeah.
picking cotton or whatever it is to do.
Well, through working with this station, and we have to depend on young people and smart young people, and a lot of them are ladies that we have had here in our studio. I have a lot of hope right now that they're going to start rising up and take care of all this old, crazy guard that I don't know how this has got rejuvenated
Billie,
in
when
our
you-
society.
When you were a teacher, did most teachers feel that they had a responsibility to educate kids and might want to deal with some of the silly things that are coming on about not teaching Black history and things like that?
When I was teaching, those were the books in the classroom that we taught. We taught the Kite Runner, for example, in the 9th grade. We taught that book about the sharecroppers in the 6th grade. We taught the classics that some of them now are being banned.
Yeah.
It's
sanitizing
To Kill a Mockingbird, I think, has been banned in
That's it,
schools.
really?
It's like, hello, I do believe it has been, but in some
it probably
states,
depends on where you go.
not in every state.
I mean, the library here has very strict guidelines as to what's an adult section and children's section. And you can't go in the adult section unless you're a certain. You can't even go in the library by yourself unless you're a certain age.
Yeah, well, I can understand that.
Yeah,
but in the
what
classroom,
I'm saying is, kids are protected from this.
Well, we always allowed parents to come into the classroom if they wanted to, and to be there and to observe and to raise their hand just like and we kept a classroom in control. And we never had cell phones in the classroom.
Yeah,
Well, but children,
Can't
when I
imagine
was
that.
growing up, never spoke back to a teacher.
Never spoke back.
I mean,
when I was
they
teaching,
refuse.
they never spoke back. It was you raise your hand if you have a comment to make, and the teacher was in control. The teachers are not in
didn't
control.
teach in my
anymore.
school.
Oh, well, no, probably not.
Go-
Well, I
that's
probably
another
sent you to the principal more than once.
Well, I had a seat with my name on it.
Well, just to back up what you were saying, Billy, there are people who are hired to write the textbooks that will be used, and so they change depending on the political scene. So, when I was growing up, we taught how nice the Indians were to the Pilgrims. I mean, it's just so sanitized, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we don't want to tell people, I did this horrible thing. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, we'll just pretend it didn't exist.
Just whitewash it.
Yeah. And there's a movie called Song of the South. Does anybody remember that?
Sure.
Yeah, I saw it recently, in fact.
Remember that?
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was banned. Hasn't it?
We
Wasn't
don't
it banned?
ban things in this country. This is America.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I think I saw it on YouTube.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. But, certain movies that are so innocuous in my way of looking at things, it reminded me of a book as a child that I really loved. It was Little Black Sambo. And to me, there was nothing, it was just an entertaining story. There was nothing political or anything to ruin my poor little mind, and I'm thinking,
But if
why are we telling people that it's not okay to read these books? Or
any books.
When I watched Song of the South, I knew it was criticized, and we kind of stereotyped. Was it Uncle Remus? Is that?
Yeah,
Uncle
To
Remus.
some extent, but we didn't make him a dumb, uneducated person. If anything, he
No.
was a bit of a philosopher.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I haven't watched that in quite many decades, but I kind of, as I go back and see little clips, it does kind of look stereotyped to me.
It was.
To some, is that the one that had the crows singing and stuff like that?
No,
believe
that's
so.
Dumbo.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. Okay, well,
It was somewhat stereotypical,
conflating
but
two. There were, look, let's face it. Go back and look at some of those cartoons. Even some whom I love, the Marx Brothers, but some of the Marx Brothers comedies were pretty racist,
Horrible.
if
Really?
you will. Well, yeah.
Marx Brothers?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, and
There's one particular scene I remember where they're talking about look at them darkies and that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Wow, we are way off of the history right now. But, and I do kind of want to go back to that before we end our time. And back to a text, Mike, that you had read. Did I hear that right, where a person was questioning? We were talking about how women in the 70s even couldn't get their own credit card. Were
That's
they
right.
denying that, or were they?
No, they were mentioning that.
Okay. Then I heard that
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
I heard that
Oh, yeah.
wrong.
That's true.
Well,
And
that's
since we
that's
were-
because they were not in the workforce. They were not considered to be in the workforce, and so they had no need to have a. If you wait until you're married, then your husband will tell you what to think.
And that's just
you know,
like
he-
and that's the point.
the way
Yeah.
my sister's
Yeah.
the first few years of her marriage were like that. Yeah.
Well, there was a time I remember my dad saying, those guys back in Washington, they know what they're doing. I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
because there wasn't television and there wasn't all of the stuff that we have now. So you send somebody to Washington to represent you, and you assume that they know what they're doing.
And you assume that they're actually representing
intelligent.
you.
So it's an entirely different world,
It is. Yeah.
and some not for the best, I'm sorry to say.
No, that's for sure.
We'll see.
Well, you know what they say about assume.
Uh-oh,
Yeah.
I know.
It makes an ASS out of you and me.
That's right. Well, I've done that a lot.
I know.
And we are kind of running down or out of time here. So it's March, what is it? March 30th. Am I
30th,
correct?
tomorrow's the last
So
day of
we
the month.
finally
We
get
get into it. Yeah.
We snuck
one more
in,
day
yeah.
of Women's History Month. and we're a little late on that, but at least we did what we could to cover it. And we're Shirley and everybody, we're all correct on saying
And in
it
our
could be
own
every-
little fashion, we've done something to change the world.
And
Okay.
I just hope people go over to the library and look up some of these books about women in history. I am just fascinated. I haven't really read the whole thing, but I'm fascinated with this book. But it's a history
And I
by
wonder-
Karen Abbott.
I wonder how much trouble these women got into. And it'll probably say in the book,
yeah, I
trying
think-
to wave their flag, to say,
One
"This is
one
what
ended
I-"
up in jail, and one ended up being shot by a colonel. And they do get in trouble.
And the the burning of the witches. I mean, that was not a little
back
fake
when,
story.
and yeah.
That was really going on.
So the final question is, why are men so eager to victimize women? Why is that? Why are
Didn't
women
it
the
start
target?
at Genesis?
Yeah, probably.
Book of Genesis? Am I correct there? I'm not a Bible scholar.
Yeah, I think
It was
did
the
start.
woman's fault.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. She had had enough sense to realize that snakes can't talk, and she's imagining this, and she's just doing what she wants to do and blaming it on the damn snake.
Well,
Being a herper, I am very insulted by that.
my phrase has always been: "You bite in, you buy in." She had him bite into the apple, so he had to buy into the fact that it was sinful to have any relations with her unless she could be in painful childbirth.
So,
And so
what-
childbirth is the whole point.
why didn't God just make another man out of that rib if that's what he wanted? No, never mind. Now I get, now I know.
Why do they both have belly buttons?
So it's religion at the basis of much of what we're dealing
I
with
agree.
I
I
absolutely,
agree.
everywhere.
I
Yeah.
absolutely believe that. 100%.
So
And there is a-
he started.
There's a great move afoot to try to make believe that our forefathers were Christians, which they were not.
No.
So this is not a Christian nation for those of you who think that it is.
Even if
Christians.
they were, they don't have a proud history.
Right.
So,
You
yeah,
know, this
right.
country was founded on slavery, manifest destiny, white supremacy, and there's another one I can't remember what it was.
Well, they were all
Genocide?
no, but the,
Genocide. Yeah.
most of them were. And now the phrase is absolutely skipping my mind
Oh, well.
at 3:59 and 27
we're-
seconds.
We are down to the last 30 seconds. So I want to thank Billie and Shirley, of course, as always. Like to have them back all the time. Every last quick second,
Well,
because we are out of time.
if you really loved or hated what we had to say, we have this telephone number. Next time around, give us a text.
Please.
Let us know what you're
And
thinking.
this is KCIWLP 100.7, beautiful Brookings, Oregon. Thanks, everybody.